Imagine taking your generosity to the next level, impacting more lives and leaving a godly legacy for generations to come. Get ideas and strategies to do just that when you listen to these personal stories from high-level kingdom champions. The Kingdom Investor Podcast showcases business leaders who have moved from success to significance, sharing how they use worldly wealth for kingdom impact. Discover how they grew in generosity, impacted more lives, and built godly legacies. You'll find motivation, inspiration, and practical steps to grow as a kingdom investor.
Hello, Ryan Smith. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Do you mind praying for our listeners before we get started?
Not at all. Dear Lord Father, I just thank you for today, this time together, this time to gather, and hopefully for the purpose of being scattered and for the purpose of telling people about you. We just pray that you are with our listeners, do whatever challenges they're going through in their life, just so that they know you're with them and for them. And we just ask that this time brings us closer together and closer to you. We ask this in your most precious name.
Amen. So Ryan, you're coming from Orlando, Florida, and I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, and David Clinton, my co-host, is in Idaho.
Yes, beautiful Coeur d'Alene.
All right. So Ryan, would you start us out by just sharing a snapshot of your life, career, kind of backstory?
Sure. It's just been one continual stream, anyway, it's been a lot of fun. So in short, I guess, just tree topping, grew up and my dad's fairly entrepreneurial, mostly in real estate. So I grew up working on our family's properties every weekend. So that was part of our contribution to the family business. He went on to own a Vietnamese restaurant. And so I was the dishwasher at 12. I would dishwash every Sunday after church, would go and enjoy working. Taught myself to code at a very young age and started doing his underwriting and analytics for his investments. It was something he wasn't well suited for. So I didn't tell him, but I ended up coding an application for him, spent a summer of about 3 months, ended up coding an application that helped him better evaluate his investments, real estate specifically. And then I presented the application to him. He loved it, used it, told a friend who told a friend. And I ended up, over many years, I had more than 100,000 users of my software globally. And I think I started writing that as a teenager, that application. So I ended up making, as I recall, a couple $1 million from this little software company that I built to, help my dad. I was the coder. I did the UI, UX, all the graphic design. I did tech support, shipping, Anyway, it was a one-man show. So it was a lot of fun. So I did that, played baseball, got drafted professionally out of high school, played all the way through college, got drafted again by the Angels in college, and kind of had a choice to make, brains versus brawn, sports versus business, and chose business. It was more stimulating to me. And there's a whole suite of reasons behind it. Met my wife around that time. She had an entrepreneurial background. She wanted to be a lawyer, go to law school. And I basically said, hey, why don't we, I've always wanted, at that point in time, I wanted to build a business with my wife. That's kind of what, for whatever weird reason, that's something I wanted to do. So I talked her into foregoing her pursuit of a law degree and kind of joining me and starting a business. And that was real estate. So we started buying single family residential properties. She had a property management background. So we all had our respective components we brought to the table. So we started buying single family residential. I think we bought about 20, 30 properties in our early 20s, long-term hold, many of them we still own to this day. Then we started looking at ways to better scale. So we basically ran a process where we said, okay, we're going to spend a weekend and we're going to financially evaluate and underwrite every asset class we could think of. So billboards, storage, hotels, industrial, mobile parks, the gamut. And, our thought was whatever's the best is the one we'll pursue. And the two best that we came out with were storage and mobile home parks. So now, almost coming up on 20 years later, we're still doing the same things. Gratefully, we were right at the time and have been right to stay the course. And we think, if you were to ask me the next 10 years, I think we're still right in the same direction, which is great. So we bought a bunch of property from, call it 2003 to 2010. We started our first fund in 2010. And from then to now, we've raised about 400 million to buy, I think $700-800 million worth of property or so, mobile home parks and storage facilities primarily. And that's what we do. From a faith lens, I had a big, went to a private Christian school, which I fully recognize doesn't mean anything, in any way that matters. But anyway, I do recall, kind of giving my life to Christ in sixth grade after class, staying behind and, receiving Christ. From there, kind of the next big milestone was around 30, which was when I turned 30, which was 2010. I was invited to a conference called Generous Giving. My wife and I now, many years later, are really involved in generous giving, which should not lead you to believe I'm as generous as I want to be. So don't let that misdirect you. But in 2010, I was invited to this conference called Generous Giving in Orlando. Didn't really want to go. I thought they would, pitch you and all this stuff. And here's where to give and here's how much to give and make you feel bad about whatever it was you were given at the time. And none of that happened. Could not have had a better experience. But one of the gentlemen who was there to speak as a guest was a gentleman named Tim Keller, who is a hero of mine, has become a hero of mine. Gratefully, I've gotten to know him personally for the last many, many years. My son's name's Keller, if that tells you anything about how much I respect him. But that was a pretty pivotal moment in my life. Hearing him, not that in any way he's a replacement for the gospel. He added an intellect and made it somewhat intellectual. So it was not purely emotive. It was thought provoking. And I really enjoyed kind of the way he integrated the gospel into kind of the whole mind, the whole body, the whole, heart. I enjoyed it. So anyway, that's a lot of talking without stopping. So
I love hearing that story. Thank you for sharing. I wonder, did you happen to go to the Generous Giving Conference this year in Orlando?
I did not. As I'm looking out of my office here, I can almost see the building that it was hosted in, but I cannot recall. I think I was on a men's trip. So I have a very good excuse, but otherwise I would have been there. I think my wife and I have been at least 5 or 6 all over the country. And then we've done a bunch of jogs, what are called journeys of generosity, kind of overnight formats. And then we're also jog facilitators. So we love generous giving.
I do as well. I've done 3 jogs. I've got one on the calendar for the end of this month. And I attended the Celebration of Generosity retreat this year for the first time ever. And it's just,
oh, nice.
It is amazing.
Did you meet Todd Harper by any chance?
Yes, I did. And yeah, wonderful group of people. I'm excited to expand that message of generosity, as far as and wide as I can. I'm curious about, from the real estate standpoint, what would have to change in the market maybe to make you decide maybe storage and mobile homes are no longer the best play?
Yeah, no, I think, as a general statement for us, or for me, the reason we liked it all the way back to the beginning, where we were looking for 4 things. We were looking for the ability to generate cash flow, which both, at least presently, do. We think will continue. There were tax benefits, which is akin to owning real estate, but, with cost segregation, there's a couple of things you could do additionally to grow that tax benefit. We wanted capital appreciation. We wanted a business that was valued based on its income, so that based on what I mentioned a minute ago as a criteria, if it has income and I can grow that income and the value is based on that income, then I have a shot at growing the value and the income because value is based on it. And so, wanted that. And then this is kind of corollary to that. We were looking for this thing called, it's low beta, non-correlation, low correlation, cycle resiliency. In short, as economies do what economies do over time, there's roller coaster rides that most of your listeners have been on. Is how many have you been on? And you can probably guess the age of a participant by how many roller coasters they say they've been on. And it's just more, and that's a good thing from a historical point of view. But I wanted to invest in an asset class that, as much as possible, those swings were either non-existent or heavily muted compared to the broader market. And again, that can be referred to often as low beta. And so I wanted something that was lower beta. A lot of times you hear in the market, non-correlated or, recession proof. And, to the extent that that's possible, great. But I wanted a lower correlation. Zero is great, but low's fine too. And historically, mobile home parks and storage have been against those four checks that I just mentioned. They are the two most compelling assets over the last 20 years, asset classes over the last 20 years to be in. So if that were to be breached in some meaningful way, in a way that I thought was sustainable, and another asset class kind of took the mantle, then I might look at it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that insight. That sounds like you've had a lot of successes in your life when it comes to business, sports, and family and stuff like that. What areas in your life would you say you've seen the most success, and what would be the reasons for that?
This is a kind of non-linear to your question, but I think it would answer it. To me, I think that, I think the thing that I don't want to say most proud of, in a sense, like that I did it, built it, or that the focus or light should be in my direction. But to me, one of the things I'm probably the most grateful for is community. We have, Jamie and I, we love community. We feel like it's probably, to be blunt, it's one thing church, actually, most churches do very poorly, we think. And it's not a knock on them, meaning it's, to a degree, it's not their job, to do the work for us. But a lot of people go to church for community, but the community in the sense that they're looking for isn't found easily at church. It's not it's much deeper than just a Bible study or a potluck dinner or a, mom's day in the park or whatever that, the cool little card inviting you to the event is. So Jamie and I have been fortunate to have met other people in our lives that had, they also value authentic community, growing deep within a larger collective. And so we've had a Bible study we've hosted at our house for the last 8 years, and it does rotate in other people's homes, but there's about 30 couples in the Bible study. So it's anywhere between, 40, 50, 60 people. And then, now it's like 20, 30 kids, it's just the volume of people the number of people doesn't matter. But to me, it is a significant number, but also very deep. And we all, really care about the other and care about our neighbor, care about our community. And that's been really fun. So probably one of my favorite things that I've been a part of is what's called the Fellowship of Believers. It's called FOB community. And then how we as a collective love each other, love our neighbor, love our community, so anyway, that's probably my favorite thing.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I was thinking that one of my mentors says, success is a terrible teacher. And I've learned a ton from the failures in my own life. Do you have any failures, so to speak, or regrets that you've learned from that may be able to help our listeners?
Yeah, it's hard because to me, I don't really celebrate my successes much. If my wife and I don't really do that much, so we just keep moving. But yeah, I certainly had a host, just a number of failures. And there's some good lessons. I would say probably one of the biggest challenges has been being disappointed by people who you had reasonable expectations and they didn't perform against them, or maybe I was unreasonable. Then I know probably my biggest disappointment was somebody I violated expectation and I think violated who he said he was to the broader market, and so, you look at it and you say, okay, do I regret, trusting or working with? And no, because if you go back, in short, in that situation, had I gone back knowing the things I knew at the time, I would do it all over again. I don't feel like I missed an obvious, but at the same time, those things happen. And so as a result, and it's probably one of the more challenging ones, because I think everybody listening to this has been let down by somebody at some point in time. That's a failure everybody can share in, is relational disappointment. And so the negative outcome of it is you go build a wall, a relational, emotional wall, and you say, okay, I'm going to retreat to behind the wall, and I'm never going to have a partner. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. And, I just think I think those disappointments are the cost of doing business relationally. And, so I, check myself, and the lesson is, yeah, that was disappointing. Wish it wouldn't have happened. Probably couldn't have done anything to avoid it. But I don't want to wall myself off against future opportunities, partnerships, relationships, those things. So yeah, it's the most specifically unspecific answer. I think you probably will.
Well, that's the cost of doing business. Relational cost of doing business is having to put trust in people. And,
Yep.
and you're right. I mean, we've all done that to some extent, some of us more than others, trusted the wrong people or somebody who was the right person, something changed in their life, so they could no longer be trustworthy. And yeah, it's the cost of doing business. If we trust nobody, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing because it's love your neighbor as yourself. So from a faith lens, I need to care about you equally or as great as I care about myself. But if you're not operating under that same lens, then the broader secular view is, I care about me more than anybody. So if I care about you and you care about you, it's it could be a shaky ground. So I've had a number of, relational disappointments professionally. I think I can share far more, the good than the bad, but the bad certainly do exist. And, those are never fun to go through.
So Ryan, on the show, we're talking a lot about the journey from success to significance and really making a difference with what we have and what God has entrusted us. Is there a specific pivot point or inflection point in your journey of generosity or your journey from success to significance, kind of the origin story behind that? Do you mind sharing that?
Well, I think to me, just to go to success and significance, to me, I think, what is significant about any person is that they're known by their creator. So to me, I would consider myself significant by anything other than that. So, you'd ask any one of my friends here, you use my name and the word significant in the same sentence and their laughter will tell you everything. So to me, I think, it is a challenge, I think, in America to kind of keep that focus of, our significance, our identity comes through Christ, and who we are to him is kind of the Higgs boson of matter of our identity. It's what gives our identity shape and form. Everything else is just an idol competing for that, kind of whispering in our ear. So, to me, I look at, I look at work as a form of worship because I think it's biblical that the only thing we're going to do for the, on the other side of eternity is worship. And so that doesn't start then, that starts now. And so our work is one of many forms of worship. So to me, the byproduct of worship should be, or the way we worship or the way we work should be excellence. And borrowing from Kathy Keller, who is equally as gifted and brilliant as Tim Keller. Tim Keller's wife, Kathy, who he would tell you finished first in their class at seminary. He did not. But she made a comment years ago when we were together. She said, excellence is the ultimate form of inclusion. And now, today inclusion is a whole, word. And obviously it's used very, very commonly. But I think she's right in that, if we are to work as a form of worship, then how are we to work? And I think the answer is with excellence. And what does excellence do? Well, it draws people in. If you saw the most beautiful painting you've ever seen, you're going to stare at it. And then everybody walking in, seeing you staring at the painting are going to wonder what the heck you're looking at, with such fervor. And they're going to look at the painting, right? Because excellence in any format, genre is inclusive. So I think that's the significance that is derivative in that we're looking to Christ for our significance. We seek to worship him in the way that we work with excellence, which then brings people hopefully into the knowledge of their significance in Christ, if that makes sense. So it's kind of an ecosystem where we're, for some reason, allowed to be a participant. Why? I have no idea. That's probably my number one question. Why use us? I wouldn't, hopefully that they'll come.
I hear in our past interactions, you speak about excellence as really a part of your philosophy of business and everything you do. Would you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance. It's doing it to the best of my ability, as under the Lord. So, we have there's examples of kind of the way we try to do that. So every investor in our, who invests with us, we have, and everybody in the office will tell you, we have a red carpet treatment. There's white glove red carpet. There's a way we treat our folks. I'll have people call me who are not accredited investors. We can only work by regulation with accredited investors. I have people who are not accredited and they're like, well, geez, you can't talk to me. No, I'm going to spend as much time with you as anybody else. It doesn't matter to me. If you have, 50 million to invest, 10,000 that I can't accept. So, the goal is to, treat people as they would want to be treated, treat our neighbor like ourselves, operate our company and our community here in a way that ultimately has people asking why. Like, why do you do it that way? Why do you behave that way? I think that's the best thing that anybody can do, is live their life in a way that people ask why, because that's now they're asking to want to know more. It's not me on the street corner yelling at you. So, although I've known people who've come to the face through somebody yelling at them. So I'm not dogging the unbelievable guy that we wish we were half as brave as being on the corner yelling at other people. But yeah, trying to integrate our faith and that level of excellence in what we do, but also not expecting perfection, because that's where it becomes an idol of, that's a slippery slope.
Absolutely. I think a pivotal point in my own life is when I stopped building my own kingdoms and, in my real estate career, chasing after profit and worrying about feeding my family and things like that, and started focusing on building God's kingdom. It gave me freedom and more of a purpose, I'd say. Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, it's a constant battle. I've probably violated that goal 27 times since lunch. That's the human condition. We're flawed, we're sinful, and for whatever reason, we can't stay the course on that objective. But I think, that's where grace comes in, and, grateful for it.
So now, looking at kind of what you're doing now with the foundation and different ways that you invest in the community and different things, if we look at our investments in God's kingdom in three main categories: time, talents, and treasure, can you share a little bit more about what you're doing now and how you're investing in God's kingdom?
Sure. I think at first, I guess holistically, I saw a pie years ago that I disagreed with, where it was like, okay, well, what percentage of your life is work, and then what percentage is ministry? And to me, I think the whole pie is or should be, ministry. So there's a lot of, ways to answer that question. But to me, probably one of the more exciting, comes out of the FOB community, which we're a part of here. But, during COVID, COVID in particular, I was staying up one night late, and I was just wondering how many people were driving by my house, struggling with rent or food or clothing, or, just struggling. So, we kind of built this infrastructure, really, really fast in response to COVID, but basically designed these huge banners to go out front of the wall. We have a stone wall out front of our house, but we put these giant banners on the street, and we started making these yard signs, put them out. We had hundreds and hundreds of them end up making it their way out in the community. We had businesses locally put them up, and they just said, need help. It was give help or need help, call, blah, 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 blah. And all we were doing was aggregating those who wanted to help with those who were in need in our community. And there was no organizational infrastructure. It was just neighbors linking arms, helping neighbors. And we ended up, receiving and giving about 50, I think in total, both cash and then non-cash gifts. It's probably between $80,000 and $100,000 within a month or two, all resourced with neighbors, and that, could have, a check could have been written that helped cover rent. In one case, we helped a couple who needed help with rent. We got their rent covered, but he's a mechanic. And then he came back and said, well, I want to offer my services to help anybody who, need this. We had dentists provide dental work. And it was just really great beyond the numbers and the dollars and that, it was just, I loved that neighbors helping neighbors and linking arms. And, to me, that's part of, love your neighbor as yourself. And I thought the FOB community at large did a really good job of that. So I guess one additional example of this, and my wife and I actually hosted a webinar last year on how to do this. So if you or your listeners want more information, reach out, I'll give it to you. But we've been pretty active with giving groups, forming giving groups. We participated one years ago, liked it so much. There have now been, I think, 5 or 6 additional ones formed. It could be, as a general template, a giving group is 12 people. It could be 6 couples. It could be 12 men, 12 ladies. But generally it's gender specific. So it's 12 ladies, 12 men. We have done a couple one that worked well too. There's different buy-ins to be a part of a group, and it's not hoity-toity clubby, but it's just a contribution to be a part of the group. So for example, if you have a $5,000 annual contribution to be a member of the group, you have 12 members, that's $60,000. You could, for some, that's a crazy high amount. You could do a $2,500 buy-in group, $1,000 buy-in. And we've done different groups on different levels to include other people, right? So that in the example of the $5,000 buy-in, you have $60,000 a year give. And then what we do is within the group, you meet usually twice a year, so it's very doable. And at one of the meetings, everybody in the group presents who they think is a candidate for a life-changing gift. And typically a life-changing gift would be $30,000 to $60,000 to one person. Not 10 people were receiving that. It's a life-changing gift. And so there's a group where the gift is primarily women in need. And so the amount of gifts that have gone, I think cumulatively those groups have given like $500,000-$600,000, but it's all local within the fabric of community to people we know, and it's life-changing. And it's not only for the receiver, obviously, but for the giver. But it's also challenging in a way that a lot of times, for example, that $5,000 group, the folks who obviously are joining that group probably have some means, but the irony is a lot of times they don't know anybody in need because they know people like them. And so the irony of those groups and the challenge of the groups is, okay, yeah, I'd like to be generous. I'd like to join the group. Now comes time to present somebody that you might know a need, and it's crickets, because they're like, crap, we really don't know anybody that's really having, So it's a good challenge to extend their fabric, their community fabric, and integrate it with other fabric, that's outside maybe their country club or their front wall. So I like the giving group model has been wonderful. It's been life-giving. We like doing it, want to do more of it.
Is that a model that you came up with, or was it something you learned from another?
We learned from another friend, and then we, to a degree, we made it our own, but it's not anything novel. It works really, really well. And every gift is different. Every recipient is different. And, it's neat. It's really neat.
I've heard it said people want to be part of something. And so if you can be the guy who starts something and just invite others along, people love that.
Yeah. And in that way, the thing about the giving group is nice is you can have a couple people who are not, they're on the periphery of not generosity, because they're probably generous in some way, but they want to do more, but they're not sure how to do it. And so it's in a community, they can come in, kind of cut their teeth with others, get connected, be generous together, which is really, really fun. So
how do you find those people to begin a group?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How do you find those people to begin a group?
In our life, there's this one saying that constantly proves true, and that's water joins a moving stream. Jamie and I don't struggle with movement. And what we've learned is, you go in a certain direction and people like what you're doing, and they'll ask you how to be a part of it. So, for a lot of it, it's us talking about, a gift or a recipient or a lady in her story, and people are like, hey, I'd love that. Or, just almost like what you did just a second ago, where it's like, well, how did, you'll see when people are interested in learning more, and they'll ask you to be a part of one. And you say, well, we don't have any groups now, but let me get your information, and you start forming what could be another group. And then Jamie and I last year, we just put together a video on what giving groups are, how to form them, how to run them. And we have documents we give people, because our goal is for, people to form them in other areas.
That's awesome. I'm excited about looking further into that in my own community. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun.
Our listeners tend to be people who want to take their generosity to the next level, impact more lives, and leave a godly legacy. When it comes to finances and investments and things, there'd be some sort of formula or advice you would have to give for people to grow their business and their investments.
Yeah, I guess and you're asking for the purpose of business and investment or giving or all of that.
Well, I'm interested in anything you've got to say.
No, it's hard. I think, at the end of the day, I can't remember what the Bible verse is, but all I remember is it's, it says it over and over and over, but it's all Hubble, it's all like, it's the point is that the who we're doing it for matters, not the what we're doing. And so, and it goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier. So, to me, I think a lot of our growth has been, yes, we're hardworking, and, we've been smart in some ways, but, God's blessed us. And, there are people out there who work harder and are smarter who have not been as fortunate. So it's not purely, me and my bootstrap and my unbelievable talents and abilities, but it's been a fun ride. I mean, to me, I think the part the part of life that's probably the most fun to me is I like generosity. I say, obviously, my friend Todd Harper, who you met at Generous Giving, who's a dear friend of mine, he's actually in our FOB community. He lives 5 miles that way, but Todd's a wonderful, wonderful guy. But he said years ago, you've never met a former giver, which is true. You never met somebody who said, yeah, I tried giving. Yeah, it's for the birds. It's not that way. Most people who are givers want to give more, and there's a reason for that. And if somebody doesn't know why that is, then try it.
Is there a key to growing in generosity, you think? Maybe in your own life, the lives of those around you?
I think I don't know. I guess where I'm growing, I'll say it this way. So yes, there's a way you can say on paper, you can say, okay, I'm giving 10% of my, my income. Now I'm giving 15, now I'm giving 20. And obviously that's a great pursuit, and I like that. To me, that's less compelling to me. Starting with a chart and a graph is that's for the birds for me. I like people, and I like actually seeing and being involved with it in kind of the street. So to me, I think the thing that I've learned and working to incorporate more in my life that I think will contribute to that, and I learned this from Tim Keller, is, when in the parables where you're sowing the seed, the way you are to throw the seed is, I think the word used is bizarre, and it means to throw with reckless abandon. So it's not to strategically, with razor specificity, place. And so to me, that's, and given my nature and who God made me to be, that's very thrilling is kind of spreading widely. In our business, we're certainly not reckless in how we allocate capital, but in giving, it's kind of fun that you can be reckless and that you can give in a way that you don't know how it's going to turn out, and you don't have to be that smart.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that if you would let go a little bit and be willing to scatter in your giving, the thrill and excitement and joy that comes from that is going to spawn future generosity and giving as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's probably even the opposite. It's like not even to open the can a little bit. It's not to close it at all, because then it's, at the end of the day, our job's to throw the seed. Again, why that's our job, I have no idea. Again, I wouldn't have chosen me, but it's why I'm not God. But the point is, it's our job to throw the seed. God's job is to water, to prepare the soil, to do all the other stuff. So yeah, I think, that's been fun. FOB was part of that, in that we didn't start by saying, here's our goals and our objectives, and we're gonna try to give $100,000. I didn't know if we give. I had no idea what the need was, but it was just fun how it grew, and then how we grew together as a community through that effort was wonderful. So yeah, I think that bizarre element, it is big.
Yeah. And if you think about the analogy of a farmer planting seeds, and, I just picture this farmer going out with a bag of seeds and casting them all over the place. And it would be so foolish for him to return to the barn with half a bag of seed and, oh, well, I'll plant that maybe next year, because that you're not going to get anything from that, because it's going to rot and it's just going to go to waste.
Yep.
But instead, don't hold back. Just, give and scatter seed.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. We're big gardeners in our family. And so we have a big garden in Orlando. And, I thought of that this year. I had an orphan seed that I had thrown in a place that I had not remembered. And it was laid dormant, but this year it was a cucumber plant. And so it just came out of it was just kind of fun to see, I had no plan for it, but it was great. And we pickled a bunch of the cucumbers from the seed that had no idea how it got there. But it was fun.
In your opinion, how do you think we as Christians can have a bigger impact?
I think going the opposite direction of the question. I think running, rather than screaming louder, doing more, making more. I think that's running to the source of what contributes to that. And that's our identity. I think, I think, I think we all know Christian men or women who they can walk in a room, not say a word, and you want to know them, right? You want to know more. They didn't say a word. Some of them you find out are unbelievably financially significant. Others you find out not at all, but you want to know them all. Doesn't matter, and that just comes from, being long in the same direction. And to me, I think running to the word, resolving identity issues, knowing who you are in Christ and why that mattered. I think if you stay there, I think everything else resolves itself. And if it doesn't, then it wasn't to be. Again, we're not tasked with making outcomes necessarily. We're tasked with throwing the seed. God's the, anyway, does the rest.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Thank you.
No, yeah. Thanks for the question.
So Ryan, what are you most excited about that you're working on right now?
It's actually a kind of a transitioning season in our life, which is, it's kind of fun. It's new. So, we continue to grow our business, which is great. We have our 8th fund that we're raising and it's going well. We're in the process of potentially liquidating many of our earlier funds. And we think that'll be, potentially quite successful, and then, our kids, we have 4 kids, 9, 7, 5, and 3. So enjoying life with them. And now that they're all to a degree out of diapers, it's starting to really be thoughtful about where we want to go as a family and how we can mold and shape our kids. And then doing this all with my bride who works, right down the hall here. So yeah, no, it's, I think we're starting to get a lot more margin in our life so that we can be more intentional, my wife is incredibly intentional, and she would tell you that I'm intentional about being unintentional. So anyway, but having that margin is fun. So yeah, I think we're at a kind of a transition point in some regards, which I'm looking forward to seeing what that turns into.
Do you have a vision for the future and where you're headed, or are you kind of open to where the Lord leads, or what does that look like?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, open to where the Lord leads. We have so much more than we could ever want or need. So, I mean, more, if I'm not satisfied with what we have now, then it'll never be cured, so I don't need to do more and have more for any reason. Now, I think, I think if we can do something that helps a lot of people, both in what our business is, low income, affordable housing, if we can affect the market and serve the market well with quality, low income, affordable housing, and then serve our investors well with a risk adjusted return, and that's well managed, and do all of that with excellence in a way that has people asking us why we do it that way, that's compelling to me. But absent those things, and not, that wouldn't be as compelling.
Right. All right. Well, we've had a great episode and really appreciate all the wisdom that you've given. Before we start the lightning round, do you have anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, no, I'm good. Y'all are great question askers.
We try to be. All right. So lightning round question. What book are you reading currently and why?
The Bible, chronological. It's a cheap answer. That's eye rolling, but I am. I had realized a couple of years ago I had not read the Bible consecutively, kind of end to end, and so I did it a couple of years in a row. But this is the first year doing it chronologically, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and it's amazing how you jump around and you're like, wow, it's not all here. So.
Yes, this morning I was in Psalms, I think Chronicles, and 2 Samuel.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
What is the most unique place that you've ever visited?
Ooh, so many different answers depending on, Alexandria, Egypt was very unique. Santiago, Chile, Brazil was unique. So many different unique places, both good and bad. There's, nobody ever tells the bad answer of that,
What's the worst place you've ever been?
Yeah, the favelas. Yeah, that was bad.
What is one goal or skill that you're working on currently?
Oh, loving my wife better.
Did she tell you to say that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's a never ending one, right?
Yeah, ask her and you see the surprise in her eyes.
Yeah.
I would answer the question.
So what can we do to help you accomplish your vision?
I'm real big on community. So if I could ever, I like knowing great people, and connecting people across the country who I think need to know each other. So if I can, help connect you, and that'd be a blessing to me because I like doing it. And then, the lay down question, the easy one is if, somebody's looking for, to invest in mobile home parks and storage, but, then they can call us too, and we can do that. But more important, the community part, I'd like to, if I can ever be of service, love to do it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see some information about these giving groups and learn more about that. And like David was talking about, maybe start one in our community.
For sure.
Links you had mentioned for more information, or if our listeners wanted to reach out to you regarding whether it's investments or, community groups, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah. So my email is ryan@elevationcg.com. My phone number, direct line is 407-602-7662. And then our website is elevationfund.com.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, Ryan, last question. What is one thing God is teaching you right now?
Trust.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
We've had the last couple of years, we've had kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. We had a business relationship many years ago go south. So through the process, which we've come through on the other side successfully on, which has been good. But through the process, it was a real big exercise in trust, which was great and, great and terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show and answering all our questions and really giving us some things to chew on. I will close us out in prayer before we jump off. Is there anything in particular that I can pray for you?
No, just wisdom, guidance, and yeah, that's great.
All right, let's pray. God, I pray that you'd watch over Ryan and his family. Lord, I pray that you'd continue to bless him, that you'd guide him, that you give him wisdom and discernment, that you would draw him closer to you each day, that he would walk with you each day, and that as he walks out his life in business, in community, that you would help him to make an impact on his community and continue to do that, and that you would really help him to thrive. God, I pray that we would bring you glory in all of our lives, that we would invest in your kingdom, putting your kingdom first and seeking first the kingdom of God. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks again, Ryan, for being here. Appreciate you
for having me.
All right. See you guys.